Fishing sure is a lonely business. I wish I had the boy with me.
Hey old man, want some sardines?
Yeah, I'd love some.
There you go.
You can't get good help these days. Hi, I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre, and today I'd like to talk to you about the characters, or the main characters, in Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. And of course, we realise when we read the book that there are only two main characters and really one main character with a sidekick. So let's talk about the protagonist first, Santiago, and what he's like. We see Santiago very early in the story, and he's the old man of the novel. He's the old man of The Old Man and the Sea, of course. He's a seasoned fisherman who's seen much of his time, but he's running through a period of really bad luck at the moment and can't seem to manage any fish. He has the boy for moral, physical, and other sorts of support. And I suppose if we look at it in terms of their relationship, as we will later on in this video, the boy's his legacy in many ways, something he leaves behind as a memory of his fishing skills and abilities and the life that he's led. He's alone, he has no wife, and yet the significance of the story is in the title. It's his fight with that great marlin, that giant fish that really sums up what's happening in his world, the natural world, the world of the sea, a world that he understands exceptionally well. So how is he described? And let's have a look at what it says in the novel, very early, page 3 of the novel. He's described as thin and gaunt with deep wrinkles in the back of his neck. The brown blotches of the benevolent skin cancer that sun brings from its reflection on the tropic sea were on his cheeks. The blotches ran well down the sides of his face, and his hands had the deep creased scars from handling heavy fish on the cords. But none of these scars were fresh. They were as old as erosions in a fishless desert. And then later on he goes on to write, everything about him was old except his eyes, and they were the same colour as the sea, and were cheerful and undefeated. And I think that quote's probably significant in terms of what happens in the novel. The old man, although he's described as old, and he looks old, and we see the repetition of old, he's not really old within himself, and he doesn't feel old. He still feels that he has something to offer. And I think that's important for the later battles that go on. Santiago is more than a physical presence in the novel in many ways. He's the allegorical core, I'll get that word out next time, and his relationship with the sea, the marlin, manolin, and the natural world are all explored. And Hemingway does so much in a very short novel, and it's credit to his writing in many ways that he's able to distill succinctly some of the most important issues facing people all over the world and still relevant in modern times in this novel. Santiago, in many ways, is the archetypal everyman. He's a figure who accepts life, his place in the natural order of the world, and passes his learning on to the next generation. The novel explores his place in that natural order. It explores, in many ways, his pride, and that's probably why the novel won the Nobel Prize and has been so widely acclaimed, because it does so much with that man. His life becomes more than average in many ways because of the honour he has and the suffering that he undergoes, which lifts the work beyond the mundane and takes it to a more spiritual level. And we'll sort of explore that in the ideas lecture in this series and the Christ-like resemblance. He may have failed to bring the marlin back, but it doesn't matter. The monetary reward is insufficient. What he does, he's achieved in a very significant way, something that nobody else could have done, and that's important to him. The struggle with his pride surpass and survive long after any earthly gain, such as the money or the bit of fish that he would have had. Santiago, I imagine, is an exploration of pride in many ways, and he explores his pride during the journey, and certainly he explores that with his fight with the marlin. His pride is a two-edged sword, and Hemingway seems to indicate that a man needs pride to survive and thrive in the world. Santiago's pride makes him go further out to sea than anyone else, of course, and the journey takes on an extra dimension because of that. But it costs him proportionally, and the journey back is difficult, and of course he does lose the fish. In this, his pride sustains him in many ways, despite losing the marlin to the sharks. He states at one point when talking to the fish, "I shouldn't have gone out so far, fish," he says. "Neither for you nor for me. I'm sorry, fish." And that little bit of sort of acceptance that his pride may have taken him too far and he needs to come to a better understanding of himself is very important in the text. I suppose the most significant and really the only relationship in the novel is the relationship between Santiago and Manolin, the boy who helps him. It's a respectful relationship. It's not based on any sort of significant paternal sort of instinct on the part of Santiago, I don't think. It's more one that he needs Manolin in many ways to carry on. And he does refer to the boy throughout the journey with the fish, and that he needs the boy in many ways. Manolin is introduced very simply into the novel, and it says the old man had taught the boy to fish, and the boy loved him. And I think the novel suggests that their relationship is as simple as that, and that it's based on that mutual respect. Manolin went fishing with the old man at 5, and the boy now takes care of Santiago's needs and looks after him. We see several times throughout the text that he helps him out very carefully. We see that he cares for the old man, and there's a quote on page 10. When the boy came back, the old man was asleep in the chair and the sun was down. The boy took the old army blanket off the bed and spread it over the back of the chair and over the old man's shoulders. And we notice down near the end of page 97, the old man says to the boy, "I missed you." And so he goes on and they talk about just the fishing. So it's a very intense and close relationship, and I think we sort of respect that a lot. Now, many of the critics have suggested over the years that Santiago has religious connotations, and we've already sort of touched on that idea earlier in the lecture. Many critics have seen him as a godlike figure to Manolin's Christ. Others see him as a Christ-like figure. And it doesn't really matter how you see him. And if you don't want to see it in this particular way, that's fine too. The religious imagery is supported with some ideas from the text. And while you don't have to agree with it, there is some evidence, I should say, that Santiago does have that. Santiago's injured hands, cut and bleeding, are reminiscent of the stigmata on Christ's hands. Another example is when Santiago is carrying his mast up the beach and stumbles just as Christ carried the cross on the crucifixion. Santiago, like Christ, transforms his loss. For instance, the fish and its worth is transformed into a triumph as he has transcended his pain and suffering and is something more, just as Christ was resurrected. Note here also that the fish takes 3 days to capture, and Christ rose after 3 days. And in some ways it becomes seen as the fish sacrificing its life so that Santiago can have it back, his back. You don't have to accept any of those. You don't have to read Santiago in that particular way, but it certainly is something to think about, and there's far more evidence that I've supplied in those notes that you can find on the website. Manolin, in this interpretation, would be the disciple figure, and Santiago is even admits to missing the boy late in the story, which is a really big statement. Manolin only appears at the bookends of the story, so he's there at the start, he's there at the end, and the old man takes the main part of the narrative. But he's a real presence throughout the novel, as he's kept in the reader's attention. He's sort of a symbolic figure throughout with his love and devotion to the old man. We think, and Santiago thinks by the end of the novel, that Manolin's going to carry on his legacy. And I think that's significant in it only to that. So really, they are the two main characters in the text. I think you can get a general idea from that. If you need any further information, go to the notes at the Total Education website, and probably that's enough to give you a general idea of what happens with those two characters in the text. Thanks for watching this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed this lecture. Don't forget to visit us at Total Education. We like your support and we hope you do well. Thank you. While I'm sitting here waiting for some more fish, you might like to go to and visit our website at totaleducationcentre.com.au and help us out a bit so we can keep making these videos. We hope you enjoyed this series on the Old Man and the Sea. I know I've enjoyed my fishing time, so don't forget, help us out, visit us, and goodbye for now.